and welcome back to Spectrum TV. I'm Karen Tui Boys, your host, and I am a champion for lifelong learning. Thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us live or whether you're joining us on the recording, to be able to find out more about positive playtime. That's what we're talking about today. So I'd love to introduce my guest, Therese Hoyle. Hi, Therese.
Hi, Karen.
Therese has had to get up very early in the morning because she's on the other side of the planet from me. She's in the UK, and so we're exactly 12 hours apart. So you're looking fantastic for this time of the morning.
Thank you. Oh yeah, time was going, so I was kind of like, yeah, just got to get on that call because it's amazing when you're showering and things how time goes.
It does, especially early in the morning. This whole series, this whole episode is around series is around resilience and relationships. And I know there's a lot we can learn from Playtimes. And I found this beautiful quote that I love, and it says, "Children have a full-time occupation. It's called play. Let them be occupied by it from their early years until their twilight years." And I thought that is just gorgeous because I think being able to be playful is really important. But we're really talking about playtime. So, Therese, tell us a little bit about yourself and a bit of your background for the viewers.
Okay, so yeah, I'm delighted to be here, Karen, because actually this is something that's so close to my heart and has been for a long time. In fact, it's been about 25 years, I think, almost. It's a long time. And so, yeah, I think for me, I've been my whole background was, I used to be a teacher. I've been in leadership, and I've been in organizational development and coaching. But, for me, the playground and playtimes are my passion. I've been running playground projects for about 20 years now. And I've written 2 books. So, it's really about for me, it's about creating happier playtimes for children. So many problems in school actually stem from what happens in the playground. So if we resolve and we sort out what's going on at playtimes and lunchtimes, then actually children can actually get on with their learning in the afternoon. So it actually, there's so many teachers who spend good teaching and learning time actually resolving conflict in the afternoon, when actually they should actually be teaching and learning. So yeah, my passion is just, in terms of so many of the statistics around play are that children aren't playing as much as they used to. So it's about getting children out playing. And in terms of playground games, so many teachers and lunchtime supervisors we have in the UK say to me, children don't know the games we used to play. So my biggest passion is that actually we need to leave a legacy around play and playtime. So actually, if we don't teach children the games that we used to play, then they're not going to be able to pass them on to their children. So that's my kind of biggest passion is, let's get out there, play, teach them games, and then they can pass them on to their children and their grandchildren. Otherwise, they'll be lost. And that would make me incredibly sad.
Yes, I so hear you about that legacy leaving, and around players is wonderful. So tell us then, Therese, in this COVID-19 world, and I know your country is very different to my country and how we're experiencing it, but there are a lot of children around the world unable to go and play. They're not even at school. So how is this affecting learning?
Well, I think there was some research that came out of around play, and so in terms of the UK, it was an Ordnance Survey map research around in the UK about children getting outside during COVID-19 and lockdown for us, because actually we were locked down for a very long period, and it showed that actually 20% of children weren't able to get outside because they didn't have gardens and they didn't have spaces to play in. So a lot of children, that's 20%, that's a lot of children. And then there are children, I think we're lucky, the schools are back now, which is fantastic. But we're under that constant fear of, will we go into lockdown again? And not just COVID-19, but before COVID-19, children have been so much more on their tablets, on their phones. The research really shows that children aren't playing as much as they used to. I think it's 4.5 hours they spend on screens and 1 hour on homework. And so that's, in terms of their ability to go outside and play with their friends, that's more limited, and they're not doing it as much as they used to. So that kind of makes me really sad. And actually we learn so much through play, you know, our relationship building, our resilience, you know, everything that we're talking about, you're talking about on these shows, you know, we really develop through play.
And so what are some of the ways that teachers might be able to invigorate this playtime for their students?
Yeah, so yeah, no, I love talking about that. So yeah, in terms of reinvigorating playtime, so, you know, play games, that's so important. And I'm writing my second edition of the 101 playground games at the moment, and just you know, if we can get out and play games with the children, teach them those games, that's so important. In terms of play, you know, very often I'll walk in, I'll do an assessment of a playground, and I'll walk in and it will be dominated by a football. And then the message is, you know, that's not a you know, it's not a healthy playtime. What I also see is I see girls in corners of playgrounds doing their job, you know, in I'm sure you've got it in New Zealand, but we have things like Britain's Got Talent, Strictly Come Dancing, all those sort of things. And I see all the girls doing their singing and dancing in little corners whilst the boys dominate the playground with their footballs. And actually people get hurt with hard footballs. So actually I really want more sense of equality in the playground with more opportunity for different children's needs. So in terms of reinvigorating the playground, it is about, you know, what's an equal opportunity for all children. You know, your quiet children having a quiet playtime space. Often it can be a garden. So, but somewhere those quieter children. I remember when I lived in New Zealand, a parent saying to me, you know, and New Zealand's so sporty. She said, you know, in our playground, there's loads of sport, but my child's he just likes to read a book. He just wants to sit and read a book. He's not really sporty, so it's not catering for him and his needs. So with schools, I'm always talking to them about actually, you know, let's have a diverse playground that meets all the different children's needs. Let's have a quiet area for those children who do want to sit and read a book, play a game, have a chat. Let's have I talk about having a craze of the week. So that's an activity where on a weekly basis, and they bring out a different activity. And so, you know, it might be week 1, they have bats and balls. Week 2, they have skipping. Week 3, they have the French skipping, the ropes. Week 4, stilts, etc. But the basis behind that is that actually there's something fresh and exciting every week. And I learned many years ago running a playground project. It was so interesting. I went into this beautiful playground, which I thought was an amazing playground. And I said to this child, you know, I was about to say to this child, don't you have an amazing playground? Because there was everything in it. And again, they had some just amazing structures, etc. And I said, I was about to say, don't you have an amazing playground? And I stopped myself, and instead I said, you know, oh, what do you think of your playground? And he looked at me and he said, it gets really boring. And I just thought, oh my goodness, you haven't been to the one down the road, because that's boring, but yours isn't. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Why is it boring? And he said to me, it's because it's the same every day. So it is about, and I think in this COVID-19 time too, and when we go back to normal too as well, and luckily in New Zealand it is about having activities that are fresh and exciting each week, and that you can introduce them in your assemblies and with your playground activity leaders. So yeah, craze of the week, games area, quiet area. I'm not thinking about the other areas. I'm kind of going blank at 7 a.m. in the morning.
Of the week. And I so hear that child saying, it's, you know, it's boring, because when it's always there and always the same, and wanting to have something that's a little bit more exciting, or something that's different and more engaging, that craze of the week is a wonderful idea.
No, it is. And I just think actually children, what happens in the UK, and I'm sure this will happen in New Zealand too, is that we buy equipment, we spend a lot of money on it, it gets lost, stolen or broken, or ends up on roofs. And actually, so many teachers and leaders say to me, we buy this amazing equipment, it doesn't last, and actually it's costing us a lot of money. And children aren't respecting it. So part of having a craze of the week is actually teaching children, how do we take care of this equipment? How do we use it? If we've got skipping ropes, you know, we don't put it around people's necks. We actually, you know, we play with this. These are some of the games that we can play. And I've got 10 skipping games in my 101 Playground Games book that actually we can download, we can put in a skipping box, and we can teach. So actually, we're skill building. And, you know, playing skipping games is amazing. You know, playing any game is amazing. And I know Yeah, and one of the other areas obviously is having a games area. So we're regularly teaching. I always get schools to teach a game of the week, and I often send out in my newsletters a game of the week. And at the moment, I'm sending out a socially distanced game of the week, because it's a time like no other. So yeah, so I'm trying to support schools the best I can with actually giving them games. So actually, they've got that game, they can play it that week. And if we teach a game every week, I've produced a resource of work, which is 52 games that schools get a game every week for 52 weeks. Although schools aren't in for 52 weeks. But basically, if we teach a game every week, then children learn a new game. They've got that whole bank of games that they can play.
That's a great idea. So how does this meet the social and emotional needs that teachers want to be able to meet in the classroom and in the playground?
Yeah, so in terms of social emotional needs, I think if you have, for so many people come, teachers, leaders come to me and say, playtimes are really not a happy place. There's lots of accidents, lots of injuries, children are falling out. And very often there's a very different set of rules inside to outside. We've got all our beautiful values inside the school. And then when children go outside, those aren't up. And they think, oh, this is completely different. We can behave differently. We have different members of staff. So what we need to discuss with children is, our moral values are the same inside to outside. So we treat each other with kindness, we're honest, we're respectful, all those sorts of behaviours. And often as well in the UK, we have lunchtime supervisors. So they're not there every day. In terms of all day, they're there for an hour and a half. And so very often children in the UK will play, they think, oh, the lunchtime supervisor doesn't know what our rules are. So I can, really mess it, I can break them. So I get schools to put up moral values in playgrounds and discuss them with children. Our expectations for inside are the same as outside as well. And this is how we behave and this is what we do. But also in terms of lunchtimes, playtimes, it is that social skills are built through playing games. They're built through relationship. They're built through, I've got a friend who actually was really poorly when he was young. And actually he didn't learn the social, I often say to him, you didn't learn the social skills of the playground. Because that's where, if you're not kind, your friend will say you're not kind. Or if you're playing a game and you're cheating, somebody will say to you, you're cheating. And then they won't want to play with you. So you learn rules through playing games and socializing and in terms of we learn about each other and how to behave with each other in terms of values, really. And if we don't meet those values, then people don't want to play with us, do they?
No, well, there's some truth around that. So in what ways might teachers really improve playground behavior?
Yeah, so in terms of teachers' playground behaviour, I think it goes back again to the value system, and actually just always talking to children about values inside and outside, and actually making the playground a fun place for children to be. So often I say, they'll say, oh, we've got lots of playground problems, and it's often bored behaviour rather than bad behaviour. So let's look at your playground. What's in there? What are some of the activities that you've got? If you've got, and often in the UK, I don't know about New Zealand, but in the UK, children often can't go onto the fields in the winter months, so they're in smaller playgrounds, and then there's more problems. So actually, let's look at our, the playground. What's what are the structures in place? Have you got imaginative play for your your younger children? So it might be you have a kitchen. You've got the kitchen, dressing up clothes. In the UK, we can't do that at the moment. But what I love is to have those structures for your younger children too. Very often we provide lots of things for our older children, but not so much for our younger children. So it might be we have Lego outside, we have colorings in, we have Dr. Dots, so they can sit down at a bench and do those things too. But actually, let's make sure there's enough for children to do outside, and then we won't have challenging behaviour.
There's two schools of thoughts, I think, around that yes, they can get bored and therefore cause the challenging behaviour. Or sometimes they get bored and then they become creative and make up their own games.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And there are, because actually what I do want is free play. So, so many children, we often have just the opportunity for children loose parts play. And I don't know if you have that normally in New Zealand, but loose parts play where we just put, you just put sticks and rocks and whatever out in the playground, and children get, it might be old telephones, and then they're really creative with those things too. So, loose parts play, just in having those forested areas as well, or those gardens where they, just naturally, don't they just go and pick something up, they turn a stick and a leaves into a beautiful pretend bonfire, and sit around it and enjoy it. So yeah, it's, natural play is really important as well.
Yes, I interviewed a while ago Celia Hogan on this outdoor play and free play, and it was some wonderful ideas that she had. So I like that idea that it doesn't have to be always structured play, that there's that free play as well that's really important. So I know you talk about playground leaders. How do they help?
Yeah, so very often there's a lack of sort of staffing at lunchtime. It can be, not lots of children out there and not that many staff. And so they're supportive of lunchtime staff, but also it's a leadership role. It's for year 5s and 6s. And when children get to year 5 and 6, it's really wonderful if we can see them actually supporting younger children. So when I'm setting up playground activity leaders, I get them to fill out, I basically do a bit of a campaign in schools, or get schools to do a bit of a campaign, marketing campaign. So they discuss it in assembly. The years 5 and 6 can fill out application forms. Then they have an interview. And then they have their interview, and then they're awarded the job. So usually we have about 12 children. Very often the schools I've worked in will end up with about 30 children applying, and lots of interviews. It can take all day. And when you get that many children, you can have, 2 or 3 out on duty a day. And then, so their responsibility is to look after equipment, is to play games with younger children. I often set up friendship stops in playgrounds. So they go off, if children don't have anybody to play, they go to the friendship stop, take that child, go off, organise a game with them. So I've seen children who struggle at playtimes, actually it changed their behaviour. Those in year 5 and 6 who do struggle at playtimes, it completely changed their behaviour. They, I teach them 10 schools teach them 10 playground games, and I see them outside just being so amazing in terms of their leadership qualities. And I've had head teachers say, oh my goodness, being a play leader for that particular child has just completely changed him. He's making a difference to younger children's lives, and I can actually see so many amazing qualities, whereas before he would have been causing so many problems. So actually it can really change some children's lives. But also that, these children love being leaders, and actually it gives them an opportunity, particularly at primary school, in year 5 and 6, to be a leader. And often year 5 and 6 they can get a bit bored as well, so they can teach children the games they love. And many of them, when we're training them, say well, actually I had a really tough playtime, so I want to be a leader because I want to make a difference to a younger child's life.
And that feeling of being a leader and having some responsibility and even accountability for the gear is something that's going to help them grow into the skills they need later on in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So those leadership skills are actually really important skills for life, definitely.
And it's about explicitly teaching them how to be a leader. So a leader isn't someone who tells what to do or bosses kids around or takes things off them, but teaching them the actual skills.
Yeah, and that's part of the playground activity leaders, is they can go into those behaviours. So you have to have somebody who's responsible for them and going out and watching them and actually training them, because that, some children think, oh, it's just all about bossing around, which is not.
No. So tell us a little bit about when there's conflict, and I know you use circle time. So how do you manage that conflict that does happen in the playground?
So what I do when I'm going into schools and I'm running my positive playtime training program is, and the days and workshops that I run, I spend the morning actually working with the children in terms of, we meet in circle times, and I teach teachers how to do circle times so that actually they can support children with having fun and learning, playing games, but also with how to, teaching them the skills for how to resolve conflict. So we often do a round to find out what the problem is. And I have a speaking object, which is usually a wooden egg. which is from New Zealand, actually. I live there. So basically we passed around this wooden egg, and I find out from the children what are the issues at lunchtimes, what are the issues at playtime. So it comes right from their heart. So they may say, I don't like it at playtime when I've got no friends. I don't like it at playtime when somebody is unkind to me. They're not allowed to name names. But what that does is we hear everybody's voice in that class, and we hear any of the struggles that are going on. And very often children don't know that actually, that person who's sitting opposite me actually doesn't have any friends either. Or that person sitting opposite me really loses their temper, and I know I do too. So and all that person's experiencing bullying, and I am as well. So we just find, we basically open up to find out what's going on. And then the second stage is asking children to take responsibility. Who here is struggling with, something at playtime that they need help and support with. And, it might be that you're the person who gets really angry and is losing their temper. Maybe you're lacking the skills for friends. I don't say lacking skills for friendship. That doesn't sound very good to say. But maybe you haven't got any friends. So, and you want somebody to play with. So then children put their hands up and say, I need help because. And so, that is a time for them to get help and support from their peers. And that actually, really helps classes come together. It helps, children get support from their peers rather than from teachers, because when we get support from our peers, it makes much more difference to our lives. Very often at the end of it, then children come up with an action plan in terms of that particular child will come up with an action plan. The class will agree to support them. If, for instance, I've had children who said, I really need to help because I lose my temper in the playground and sometimes I hurt other people. So the children in the class will help and support that child. They'll agree on a set of actions, that particular child, and then we'll follow through the following lunchtime and see how it's gone. And very often I've got children to support that child as well. And the children come and say, oh, we played with Jack. We had a really good day. Jack's played really kindly today. So it is about that following through. And children want to behave. They want to do well. They want to learn. But sometimes we have to set up those conditions.
What about wet lunch times and playtimes? Because that can be a nightmare in schools because children can't get outside. So what are some of your suggestions for that?
So very often, you've got children in classes, there's not enough for them to do. And also teachers don't want them going into their usual equipment because and so sometimes there's not agreement around what can be used and what can't be used. So often I suggest wet play boxes. So actually into that box is all the equipment and the activities, games, packs of cards they can actually use at wet play. And I've written, I've got it here, 101 wet playtime games, and it's just packed full. It's got I'll just show you Dr. Dots, word searches. It's got, I'm just going to have to refresh my memory sometimes too. It's got lots of games you can play, just reminder games. But what I do is I suggest to schools that they actually fill that wet play box with some of those sheets. So children have got activities to do. It's got quizzes. So actually as a class, you can organise a quiz. It's got circle activities, games that you can play in the classroom. So, and very often it gets, I know for myself as a teacher, when I was teaching, it would get to wet play and I think, oh my goodness, I haven't got anything for children to do. And I'd be rushing to the photocopier. And part of the reason why I wrote the book was because actually I collected lots of activities over the years. And I just thought, I want those boxes to be filled prior to wet play, so teachers aren't rushing to the photocopier just when it's a wet play and trying to scramble to find something. So actually, it is, having those boxes filled in advance. And I worked with a school in Bristol in January, and they were just so organised. They got all, the admin assistant to fill up the wet play boxes for all the classes, so that they're all, they're always replenished. And that's what's important too, because otherwise it gets to wet play and you're like, help, what am I going to do?
So being organised and pre-thinking about what these children are going to be able to do.
Absolutely.
Making sure and I like that, making sure they know what they can do and what they can't do. Not necessarily.
And sometimes we have to have that written up on a wall so that actually whoever's coming into that classroom actually knows what to do, because that particularly in England, when we have lunchtime supervisors, they can feel really de-skilled if they get told, they might get told by a teacher be upset with them. So actually, we need to have a lot of clarity around that.
Great suggestion. Thank you. As we begin to finish up, Therese, what about, tell us a little bit about where the viewers can get your books from.
Okay, so my website, you can buy my books, which is www.theresehoyle.com. And I've got lots of resources and free resources and games. So you can actually sign up for the newsletter and get my 10 free games as well. And I'm running an online class at the moment, Karen. So actually, New Zealand residents can actually come into my classes, which would be amazing. This is what it's opening up at the moment, is opportunities for us all to connect so much more.
Absolutely. So we'll put your website down in the chat, and so that people can access that. So thank you for that. And Therese, thank you for just giving us a few ideas and a few strategies and structures that might help us have more positive playtimes with our students. So appreciate it. And for the viewers, that's another episode of Spectrum TV. And next week, we have Anne Riches from Australia, and she talks about minefield navigation. She's an expert in understanding the brain, stress, resilience, and even that creating relationships. So she is definitely someone you want to listen to, someone you want to learn from. She spoke at our live conference in January, and she was a total hit. So join us at 7 p.m. next Wednesday for that episode. And until then, thank you very much, Therese. Again, viewers, please stay safe and keep learning.